Hello everyone, and welcome to another victory edition of the ROKER Report podcast. It's Gav again. I know you heard us on Saturday, you're going to hear us again during the week. Deal with it. Connor Bromley's fault, that's all I'm leaving it at. Today, I'm joined by two of ROKER Report's finest. I've got Sam with us. Sam, how are you, mate?
I'm good. Second time talking about this, but it's nice because we won, so who cares?
Yeah, and Craig, how are you, mate?
Very good. It's great to be talking about back-to-back wins.
Yeah. Everybody listening at home will be fully aware that Sunderland on Saturday won 1-0 against promotion rivals Peterborough United. Grant Leadbitter scored a fine penalty from the spot, and today we're going to analyse the game in more detail than we did on Saturday. And I'll probably not say as much because you've already heard from me. But we'll get on to the team first. The starting 11, Sam, didn't really cause much of a stir when the team came out. I think although Charlie Wyke starting up front raised a few eyebrows. What did you make of the team when you saw it? Before you discount what you saw during the game, when you saw that team at 2:00 on Saturday, what did you think?
I think bar Charlie Wyke coming in, it was pretty unsurprising. I think it would have been very harsh not to start Gooch after Oxford. He deserved his place. But I think in terms of the striker, it's 3 games now and we've played all 3 different strikers. So whether or not Parkinson's given them all a fair crack at it, or what he perceives to be a fair crack, or whether he's playing who he thinks is going to suit the defence we're playing against, but who knows. But no, I didn't have many problems with the team. I know he was alluding to Power not being fit during the week, so Scowen came in and Leadbitter was great against Oxford, so it was good to see him keep his place as well.
Yeah, Craig, the two that came in were Scowen and Wyke. What did you make of how they played? Do you think they keep their place next week?
I think for the moment with the issue with our strikers is until somebody really lays down a marker, the likelihood is that we're probably going to see this rotating system, and nobody really has took that chance as of yet. I know that we were, spoiled for choice the other week, scoring a couple of goals with Danny Graham and Charlie Wyke again at Aston Villa under 23s, but they weren't really a challenge that you would perhaps expect to come up against every single week. So as nobody has really laid down that marker as of yet, I do expect that this will be a position where it's anybody's to stake, it's anybody's to lay a claim at now, and with the likelihood of Benji Kimpioka signing a deal as well, it's just going to add another body in there. Josh Scowen, a little bit disappointed with, in truth. I think we've all been championing seeing him a little bit more in recent months, because the reality was we didn't really get to see too much of him pre-COVID. He done okay. I mean, he certainly wasn't anything to write home majorly about. Set pieces were a little bit underwhelming, but I think with Max Power potentially being fit, you would anticipate that the captain will return to the side pretty much effective immediate. So I think that's just the nature of the side at the moment, in truth, because we do have an okay depth in a variety of positions now. If you miss your opportunity, I think you're going to be out of the team pretty quickly.
Yeah. Speaking of which, the defence once again kept a clean sheet. Probably the only man in that defence whose position is under question is Tom Flanagan, and he probably had, for me, his best game in a Sunderland shirt, or very close to it anyways, Sam. I mean, what did you make of Flanagan and in particular the defence on Saturday? Of course, keeping a clean sheet against a good team who first 10-15 minutes came flying at us. It's probably the biggest positive to take from the game for me.
Oh yeah, definitely. And against a team like Peterborough with Clark Harris and Dembele, with Clark Harris being ultimately probably, if not the best striker in League One, to keep him it'd be relatively comfortably, to be honest. I thought they did really well. I think what we're seeing with Flanagan is he's playing for his place, he's fighting for it. He knows one bad performance and Jamal G comes in. I'm butchering that, I was trying not to say it, but no, I think he knows that he's knocking on the door and fans want to see him, so it's good to see from Flanagan. I think this whole thing about us having a bigger squad this season, we're going to see players like Flanagan fight for the place and play the heart out, and that's what's good to see. And hopefully, I'm hoping that's what pushes one, or if not all of our strikers on as well.
Yeah, to be honest, the biggest plus other than Flanagan in that whole defensive performance for me, Craig, was probably the 2 fullbacks. Luke O'Nien doesn't really pull up any trees for me in the final third, but I thought his final ball was a lot better this week. And Denver Hume, just for me, I gave him man the match in the player ratings pod on Saturday, but there's just something different about the way he's defending. I don't know, he does seem to, whoever's advising him seems to be drumming it well into him, because he's flying into tackles where I would never say his defensive ability was anything to write home about, even at the end of last season, the last time we saw the team play. What did you make of that? I guess is the fullbacks in particular. What did you make of their performance?
Well, just touching on Hume, I thought Phil Parkinson nailed that at full time when he basically said that he'd gone into lockdown basically as a boy and he's come out a man.
Yeah.
And I know there has been so many kind of like critics really just scathing comments about his delivery. I mean, he's one of those players, and I think always with local lads as well, I think they do always draw a little bit more, say, unnecessary criticism. But perhaps it's just one of those things that come with obviously being the local player, if you like. But I thought it was absolutely brilliant on Saturday. I thought he was great against Oxford, but there was so much improvement again. So much that obviously he's found himself into Team of the Week with the League One thing that's done the rounds on Twitter earlier. But you're right, he's now looking more full-blooded. He's not afraid to get stuck in. His delivery is certainly improving. He's getting into a lot of dangerous positions. And one thing I was really pleased about is just how much trouble he was actually causing a pretty settled Peterborough back line. And he's just not afraid of anything. Maybe that just comes with his age, just being a young lad, that he's not, say, afraid to make mistakes. And if he does obviously, say, run into any danger, you know, he doesn't hesitate to get stuck in again time and time again. So I really would echo what everybody's been saying out in the press. I know Phil Smith obviously wrote a piece about him over the weekend. But yeah, long may it continue. I sincerely hope that with Denver Hume that it does. Obviously, say lay to rest his doubters, because he's had an awful lot of criticism. But it's worth remembering, despite him being a young lad, that this is only, say, 2.5 full seasons of professional football now. So yeah, long may it continue. I think the next important thing for Sunderland, of course, is ensuring that we, tie down his future and obviously prevent anybody from coming in and taking him. But it wouldn't surprise me to see him certainly play at a high level, hopefully with Sunderland.
Yeah. Just to talk more roundly about the defence, Sam, another clean sheet, obviously, as we've mentioned. Just how important is that going to be going to the end of the season, particularly when we're not? You can see in the way we're playing, can't you, with the attack? We're not going to score many goals. As long as Parkinson's here, as long as we're playing this system, don't think we're going to score many goals. So just how important is it that we defend like we did?
Yeah, I think it's massive. What we're seeing is, people might not like it, but if it gets us promoted, then who cares? But we are set up now to not get beat, realistically. Specifically not to concede. And when you don't concede, you're going to see games like yesterday where I'd say arguably we weren't a better team. But if you're not going to concede, you're going to get that one chance, that one set piece, and that's what promotion pushes are about, winning 1-0 when you're not at your best. So I think when we compare it to the Jack Ross days, where maybe we played better football but we were more open, you saw all the 1-1s where we would batter a team, make it 1-0, and then the doubt would start to creep in at the end and we would get pushed back and then ultimately concede. Whereas now we are solid defensively from the beginning, so the confidence is there. The only thing I would say with the defence, and I think it'll come, I think he's a good keeper, I just think he needs a bit more confidence, is if there is one negative, is Burge might look a bit shaky. But I think the fact that I'm seeing that highlights just how good the defence is, to be honest, considering we didn't even concede a goal.
I think we're just more resilient. Just at the moment, we look more resilient. We're more organised, and I think obviously what speaks volumes really in terms of this settled back line now is Bailey Wright. I think it's 9 full appearances that he's had with us, and it's been 6 or 7 clean sheets. I mean, at the moment, you would pretty much fancy our chances of going into any game and coming out with a clean sheet. I mean, we famously are a side, especially at this level, where teams look to throw set pieces at us, they try to unnerve us, they try to really kind of get under our skin somewhat, but it doesn't look like we're going to be buckling under that sort of pressure again this season. And I know, of course, it was only a few weeks ago against Bristol Rovers where we had a calamitous couple of minutes, but sides are really going to have to take said opportunities, because at the moment it just does not look like we're under any sort of immediate pressure. And with that settled back line, if it is the case that we're going to continue with them and we're not, say, chopping and changing bodies, then that's obviously going to be a major strength. They're going to get that confidence between the three of them. They're going to ensure, of course, that they tighten up any mistakes and any errors. But even though Peterborough perhaps has, maybe the lion's share of better chances over the course of the weekend, I never really thought that we were in danger. Not once, actually.
No, I was just going to get onto that, actually, because I saw quite a lot of praise for Dembele, who played up front for Peterborough, and from our fans in particular. And if I'm honest, didn't really impress me, although he did have a couple of nice moments where he turned. Willis was one of them. It's just, I don't think he really bothered us that much, which is, to be fair, to the credit of our defence again, because going into the game,
Yeah.
everybody will have heard the conversation with Darren McAntony, and he spoke up Dembele. He said he's going to be a real player for them this season. And you can see why. He's got raw attributes, which a lot of teams don't have in their attack. But for me, I don't know whether it was because he maybe had an off day or whether it was just the fact we defended so well, but I don't feel as though he troubled us overly, and I felt the way that, and credit to Parkinson actually, the way we set up suited playing against a team with a fast centre forward, because we just sat deeper and Leadbitter sat on top of them, and you know, it kind of shut out any hope they had of getting him behind us, which is probably where he's at his most devastating.
Yeah, I think just touching on Dembele, you can see he's, for a young lad, he's quite intelligent, and he was somewhat of
Well, you say a young lad, he's 24. I thought he was older than that.
Is he 24?
younger,
I thought he was young.
Yeah, 24-year-old. Somebody mentioned this on Saturday. 24-year-old. I thought he was like 18, 19.
Yeah, so did I.
Still, maybe he's just hitting his stride a bit later than everyone else.
Yeah, I was going to say we're just ancient in comparison to him, but
Yeah,
I think he was
that's it.
really energetic. He was a bit of a live wire, and like there was times where he was dropping into space, and it didn't look like we could say get near him. There was a few times where you thought, right, he might create or carve something out here, but I think credit to Phil Parkinson, and obviously credit to the side, we're cottoned onto that very early. That Peterborough basically just wanted to play straight through the middle of us, and exactly as you've said, we shut it down straight away. Just obviously touching on what you said about Leadbitter, again, excellent performance from him, very experienced. Even though you've got somebody in Dembele who can basically run rings around him, just primarily because he's got the legs, just didn't really trouble Leadbitter once he got going. So I was over the moon with that, and I think obviously it is starting to speak volumes that we're playing a fancied side like Peterborough. We played a fancied side like Oxford United, and we're coming out of it again. You're looking at them and you're thinking, if that's our competition, then do we really have anything to worry about? I don't think there was too much to fear really from them. Granted, I know we didn't create overly too much, but there's a lot of people saying we're not playing great football, which, okay, fair enough, that may be the case. But if it's the case that we're, say, a striker away or maybe another attacking body away from turning us into the finished product, then if we do hit top form, we're going to start putting teams away very, very quickly.
Yeah, quite literally moving forward then, Sam, we're talking about Charlie Wyke up front in a bit more detail now. To be honest, I think he played poorly. That's being nice. I think on the player rating show, he got a 1. I wrote down some. I actually took notes for the game because of the player ratings pod. And at half time, I was thinking of reasons to give Charlie Wyke anything over a 0. He just done nothing right. Second half, I think the only thing he did right was he got a shot away when the ball played in behind to him, and then he won a free kick on the edge of the box. But again, it was more of the same. What do we do? What do we do with Charlie Wyke? What do we do up front? Because Parkinson he's nailed the defence. I think we can probably pretty much unanimously agree. Defensively, Sunderland are spot on right now. But you can't ignore the fact there's like this big gaping hole up front. And when we aren't creating enough chances for forwards, but the strikers don't even create their own chances. There's just nothing going into the box. That is got to be the main worry going forward, hasn't it?
No, I think you're right. And it speaks volumes that we're now 3 games in. We've played 3 different strikers, and I can't think of any of them having a good opportunity, to be honest. Not even the case of not taking the chances. I know they don't help themselves, but we've got to look at 3 games now and no chances for our forwards, and it's got to be system we play. So the thing with Wyke is, and it's sadly a typical Charlie Wyke performance where you're just left scratching your head thinking, what does he do to get on that pitch? Is it something we're not seeing? Is he mouthing off to the defenders, putting them off? Who knows? But I just think with the pre-season Greg had, if we're not going to create many chances for our strikers, this is my opinion, if, say, a striker's going to get 1 or 2 chances every couple of games, I'd rather it fall to Will Grigg than Charlie Wyke.
Sorry to butt in, Sam, but that's what I was thinking. I think it was the Oxford game when, I know it might have been Bristol Rovers, when the ball fell twice to O'Brien. I think it was Oxford, and he fluffed them both. Yeah, it was O'Brien. And I was saying the same. I was thinking, I'm not Will Grigg's biggest fan, but you want them falling to him, don't you?
Yeah, I just... You could justify it if, say, Wyke was terrific at holding the ball up and he used his stature, because you'd think, well, he offers more than goals, and if he's going to bring players into play like Gooch and Maguire, then fair enough. But the fact he doesn't do anything off the ball surely you want your best finisher on the pitch. But I think it's just Parkinson's way. I do feel a bit sorry for Greg because I think he had a great pre-season and he didn't do much against Bristol Rovers, but we didn't create anything for him. And the fact he hasn't featured in the last 2 games for me is a bit worrying because it rings alarm bells of when Parkinson came in and basically froze him out.
Yeah.
I just get the opinion that Parkinson doesn't rate him and sort of had to play him against Bristol Rovers because of his pre-season, and now he's not done anything. He's thinking, well, I don't have to play him now. But hopefully I'm wrong and we'll see Greg again. But it is a problem going forward. But if we're keeping clean sheets, then hopefully we'll just nick it 1 or 2-0 every time like we have been.
Yeah. Craig, when Parkinson spoke after the game, he talked up Charlie Wyke's performance. He talked about how he was chasing down defenders and that was important to the way we were going to play. What do you reckon of what he had to say? I don't know if you actually heard it yourself, but Wyke's contributions being critical to how we played.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't want to do too much disservice to any of the lads at the moment. Obviously, I appreciate they've had an extensive kind of break away from football, but I'm just going to read something out to you here, right? This is basically our shots on goal so far for the league games this season. So Bristol Rovers, we had 25 shots on goal. We had 3 from Will Grigg and Charlie Wyke, so 3 total. Oxford, 18 shots, none from Danny Graham or Charlie Wyke. Peterborough, 9 shots, 1 from Charlie Wyke and Danny Graham, so combined 1 shot on goal from our strikers. I think the major issue that we've had over the course of the 3 games so far is it still looks like our strikers are like immensely isolated at times. We've probably got to do a little bit more to bring them in. That being said, I did not see that from Charlie Wyke on Saturday, and there was a really good chance at one stage. I'm pretty certain that it was Scowen who looked to put the ball in. Really good delivery from him. And Charlie Wyke, he's just got to use his body, get past his man, and just try and get anything under it, get a flick under it. But it just didn't look like he had, one, the appetite to do it, or second of all, like the nous, like maybe he wasn't prepared, he wasn't aware. But I think in terms of the strikers, it does often look like they're just a bunch of strangers to the rest of the team. And I suppose it must be a bit disheartening for them because they've all got track records of scoring elsewhere, and quite clearly it hasn't worked at Sunderland. But for some kind of obscene reason, we have got somebody like Will Grigg who's got a pretty good pedigree. Obviously, we've invested an awful lot of money in. So you think at some point he has to get a run in the team, because Charlie Wyke, with all due respect to him, you hear great things that he's a good lad around the dressing room, so on. But he does seem to get rewarded an awful lot for, some really kind of poor performances. You can't imagine that, say, going away to Charlton on the weekend, that he's going to look at, say, replacing Will Grigg over Charlie Wyke. It's likely to be Charlie Wyke. It's likely to be Danny Graham, one of the two, because they talk about holding the ball up. And I don't know. I just don't see that side from Charlie Wyke. Quite honestly, I know his contract's due to run out, I think, at the end of the season, and you can't imagine that another deal will be forthcoming for him. It hasn't worked out, and I think obviously for where we're aiming to be, he's just not good enough for us. So ideally, if we can perhaps get another body in, but I think it's time that Parkinson perhaps does realise that what we all can see, he should not be our number 1 striker. And quite honestly, whether he's just trying to defend him in the press, that's fair enough. But I think from time to time, obviously, he's going to have that. I suppose that realisation that if you want to kind of win games in this league, that you're going to have to obviously use your strongest lineup. And I think he's a bit of a hindrance at the moment because, although, like I said, Peterborough didn't cause us too many problems, we're going to go away to a lot of other difficult teams this year. And the likelihood is that we're going to concede some goals. So we've got to try and start backing ourselves to at least maybe go and win a game by 2 or 3, just to ensure that we've got that security.
There was a chart actually that went around after the game. Don't know if you saw it. I think it was posted in our chat and I maybe retweeted it on Twitter. But there was a chart showing the various pass maps of the players from the game. And then there was one which was all of the passes completed by Sunderland and not completed by Sunderland over the 90. And you can quite clearly see the way we play just from looking at that. Every pass goes wide. Nothing goes through the middle. There could be a force field around the 18-yard box, really, by looking at that chart. I think it was 5 passes I counted, played into the 18-yard box in the 90 minutes. What do we do, Sam? Like, what do you choose? If you're Phil Parkinson, you've sorted the defence out, we're winning games, we're keeping clean sheets, but your strikers aren't scoring goals. You're relying on moments of brilliance. You're relying on keeping clean sheets, basically. What do you do to change our fortunes in front of goal? And I'm not saying that I say fortunes rather facetiously, but we are scoring goals. We're just maybe not doing it in the fashion that most promoted teams generally would.
Well, when I saw the first game of the season, I actually thought he was trying to do something about it by putting Maguire almost in the number 10 role. I thought that was his way of trying to get passes through the middle, because towards the end of last season, once we went on that great run of playing the 3 or 5 at the back, we sort of got a bit figured out, and all we were doing was going side to side, side to side. And we were crying out for someone to pick it up in the pocket, and I thought that's what he was trying to do with Maguire, but like you said, it seems to be the same this season, where we're just trying to stretch teams. And I was listening to '09's podcast in the week with the club, and he was sort of hinting that what they're really working on is getting the ball to Hume and getting him to whip crosses in '09 at the back post. So I don't think it's a coincidence that we're playing it out wide. I think that's how Parkinson wants us to play. But I would agree that sometimes you need a plan B. I mean, we saw against Bristol Rovers, not everything goes to plan. I mean, that was completely out of the blue what happened and unlucky. But when they're going to then sit behind the ball, passing it side to side, doesn't work. So
yeah,
I do think we need to change it. Like you said, I don't know how, but I also think Parkinson doesn't want to change it, because I think that's the way he wants to play, and in his eyes it's working, and I suppose it has, but only time will tell, to be honest.
There was a comment last year, Craig, from Will Griggs' brother on Twitter, where he said that he felt the strikers in Phil Parkinson's Sunderland team were simply a decoy for the inside forwards to get into goal scoring positions. Certainly seems to be the case, doesn't it? That's maybe why Charlie White starts up front the majority of the time, because Parky likes a big man just to be in there, being a distraction for the central defenders. But I mean, how far is that going to get us this season?
I suppose it's a pretty reasonable comment from them, in fairness, because if you look over the course of the past couple of seasons, say excluding Josh Madger, that everything has pretty much come from midfield. It's one of those where you don't really want to be too sort of like kind of downbeat or negative about it, but it's a major issue, and what you are relying on is Chris Maguire. You're relying on Lyndon Gooch to be on top form all the time, and players of that caliber obviously are going to be, the ones who are going to be marked. They're the ones that they're going to obviously be under immense amount of pressure when you're playing against teams who are obviously going to begin to do the homework on us. So you're perhaps hoping that O'Brien begins to chip in a little bit more. But yeah, I think realistically speaking, Sam's kind of mentioned there about maybe having no plan B or anything like that, and I think fair enough, okay, that we are grinding out results at the moment. That's absolutely fine. Long may that continue. But we got sussed out at the end of that pretty good run at the back end of last season, and we've just got to ensure that doesn't happen again here. I mean, like I said, obviously we've beat 2 promotion rivals so far, obviously with a very, very difficult game to come next week. So I think we need to ensure that if games aren't going to plan, that we do have a variety of options, that we can mix it up, and we've got to start trying to get the best out of the strikers. We've got to play to their strengths. So, I mean, whilst obviously Will Griggs' brothers made that comment, you've got to start looking at it and thinking, right, well, you don't want to sign a £4 million player just to be a decoy, especially one who's got a pedigree like Will Grigg, who can score potentially 20 goals in this division. You've got to look at playing to his strengths. You've got to look to get him more involved. You've got to look at, say, trying to take the burden off Maguire and Gooch and somebody else, and making sure we can share that load, because Chris Maguire went off injured the other day. So if you look at that now, you've only got Lyndon Gooch as your primary goal scorer, and then you've got so-called 3 decoys in your team. It's not going to go well if that's the plan. So, like I said, obviously it's great that we are grinding out results, but we need to make sure that we've got some sort of alternative plan going forward.
Yeah. We didn't talk much about the midfield, so we'll get on to that next. Scowen came in for Max Power, and to be honest, quiet for the most part. And we, I laughed at Parkinson's comment about him being sort of the backup right of a 3 midfielder behind Maguire. But to be fair, when Maguire went off and Scowen moved wider, he got on the ball more. He was putting crosses into the box. He sort of stepped up to the plate. Chris Maguire goes off the pitch, and the rest of the team sort of look around at each other and think, "Oh, hang on, who's gonna be the one getting on the ball all the time and trying to create chances?" And to be fair to Scowen, he tried his best. But is it enough to keep him in the team next week, Sam? Do you think?
It's a tricky one, because I think Craig mentioned it at the start. We've all been asking for Scowen to come in. I was a bit, not too disappointed, but I think he's better than what he produced on Saturday. I think he just missed the ball a few times, didn't he? There was one, I remember, we sort of pulled it back to him in a good position just inside the box, and he just completely missed the ball.
Yeah.
But his set pieces are quite good, and I was very confused to see him sort of go into that advanced role whilst Lyndon Gooch sort of played centre midfield. But I think he's there just because of his delivery, sort of almost like Seb Larson, just no nonsense, get the ball into the box, which I could see working. But I think if Power's fit next week, he'll come straight back in due to him being captain, obviously. But I don't know how much Power and Leadbitter would work together. But I don't think you can drop Leadbitter because of how he's been playing. Obviously, match winner and arguably not quite man of the match, but he's been the top 3 players for the last 2 games. So I think Leadbitter's got to keep his place as well.
Yeah, we'll move on to Leadbitter actually, Craig. He scored the penalty, obviously, but for me there was that first 10-15 minutes when we were under pressure. I think Dembele got the better of him a couple of times and left him for dust. But after that, he worked him out, and he was really important to how we defended. There was one moment actually where Dembele was about to pull the trigger and Leadbitter just nips in and wins the ball. It's a goal saving tackle. And he doesn't get enough credit for stuff like that, for me.
Yeah, I think he's been absolutely vital so far. And to be fair, he's probably a candidate early doors for basically player of the month for us. He's you know what you're going to get with him. And yeah, you're right. Obviously, there is going to be a few instances where the younger lads are perhaps going to get round him a little bit quicker. That's just, father time catches up with everybody, I'm afraid. But I tell you what, if you could pick up his brain and put it into, say, like Max Power's body, he is a very, very intelligent player, Grant Leadbitter. And the way he reads the game, his distribution's still good. He's going to play a massive part for us this season, I would expect. And that is something I don't think many people might have imagined. If we kind of flash back a couple of weeks where people were saying he'll be a bit part player. Obviously, he had the armband took off him. And that may have ran to early suggestions that we're not going to have a lot to do with him in terms of even being in the squad. But I think if he continues this run of form, then he's going to be absolutely crucial for us. And obviously with a difficult away game coming up, you're going to need somebody in there. You're going to need somebody to keep it calm, keep it cool. So whilst I do agree with Sam about whether we could have him and Power in the same midfield, I think that's where you perhaps would still have somebody like Scowen in, somebody who can kind of come in, dig the ball out and basically take it out of danger, where you've got Leadbitter who's there as your last line of defence, and you've got Power who can help as well with obviously getting the ball away, just like Scowen could. But I think at the present moment, it's kind of spoilt for riches in centre midfield. One thing I would say is just kind of stepping away from Leadbitter, as I can't see George Dobson getting his place anytime soon when his suspension's over with. At least that's what I would expect based on so far. But yeah, Leadbitter's been excellent so far. And like I said, obviously to get the reward he did, when he steps up and takes a penalty, I mean, Christ, if you look at the ones he took down the years at Middlesbrough, you just knew as soon as he stepped up he was going to score. And it was a lovely moment as well that he when he ran over the side of the pitch. Really, really good player. Happy with his contribution. And you know what? If this is to be his final season, then let's hope obviously he gets his rewards and hopefully gets us out this league.
Yeah. Let's talk about the penalty then, since we've touched on it. Do you think it was a penalty, Sam? I've seen it back a few times and I still can't work it out.
I do, yeah. Maybe a bit biased, but I've spoken to a lot of people who said it wasn't. So maybe that is just me with me Sunderland red and white tinted glasses on. But you don't get that penalty if you haven't got someone like Hume who's willing to take risks. And I think I know we touched on him earlier, but it highlighted how far he's came, Hume, because I remember my first podcast was the second game of the season last year, Ipswich away. And I believe he got took off at half time and he looked lost. He looked like with rabbit in the headlights. He looked shocking, really. And you think that's only a year gone. He looks like a totally different player. And like I say, he's bar Gooch. He's the only player that when he's got the ball, you're thinking something can happen other than just a cross in the box. I know he gets his crosses away, but there's only him, like I say, him and Gooch who I see winning that penalty. So when you're going to keep it tight at the back, you need risk takers, and I think Hume's came a long way, and he's probably one of the first names on the team sheet, if not the first one now. And that's not just because we don't have another left back. That's because of his performances.
Yeah, it's a little bit to do with the fact he's our only left back, I think.
It just
What about you, Craig? Did you think it was a penalty?
Yeah. And again, maybe that's just the red and white blinkers, but I think you've got every right first and foremost to go down if somebody is going to have a swipe at the leg. I'll be honest, I think if there was fans in the ground, I'm not convinced we would have got it. Certainly not last season. The way it tends to work is we always have a referee at the Stadium Light who wants to say, make a name for themselves and be the villain of the show, if you like. But no, I think it was certainly well deserved. Like I said, on the balance of how many we've had given against us, it's about time that we get one like that. And just touching on Hume again, obviously, if you're getting in and around those areas, run at defenders, put them on the back foot. actually try and bring the foul out of them, try and get something like that, especially when you've got a bit of pace, because from time to time, Sunderland over, for God knows how many years we could see now, slow and build up, slow and dillying and dallying around the area, looking for options, rather than say, kind of fart about and lump a ball in, which say Wyke or somebody else might not get on the end of. Just literally run at your man, try and bring something out of them. And if you get fouled, obviously great if we get a penalty as a result. But yeah, I think it was an absolute stonewaller. I know there was a load of people kicking off. I know Darren Ferguson kicked off, but I think if the shoe was on the other foot and Peterborough got that, they would have been happy with the decision.
Yeah, Benno wasn't happy about that, was he? The slow play, you've just touched on it there. I think he just banged on about it for 90 minutes. But he was right, to be fair. Like we do pass the ball too slowly at times. I said this during the game. I think that's maybe one thing we don't see when Max Power's in the team, and then when he comes out the team, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Power's one of the players who, when he gets the ball, he drives the team forward, and he might not. To be fair, I don't think he's particularly great, but when it comes to tempo, Max Power's one of the ones trying to get the ball moving quickly, and I think that's maybe where we missed him. I don't know about you, Sam, but do you see that's maybe why Power comes straight back into this team? Because Charlton have lots of problems, and we will get on to talking about Charlton, but they have lots of problems. But one thing they don't have problems is in midfield. They have loads of midfielders, and we have to control the game, really.
Yeah, I think, touching on what we were saying earlier, I think we might see both Power and Leadbitter due to that. I don't know if whether he'll throw Scowen in as well and we'll change the formation a bit, but I think he'll want as much experience as he can, particularly in the middle of the pitch. But no, touching on Power, I do agree. I don't think he's not the best player we've ever had. He's not going to set the league alight, but he's good at his job, and a lot of his job is things you don't really see or notice, particularly off the ball. But then, like you said, on the ball, he does always look forward, and he's the one midfielder that, it might look simple, he'll play that 5-10 yard pass forward into space to the likes of Maguire. So I think it's without question that if he's fit, he comes straight back into the team. Sometimes not because of his ability. I think he is a good captain. I know there was a lot of query about his choice to be captain, but I think you see players look to him. Particularly, I know Dobson wasn't great before his suspension, but I think someone like Dobson needs a Power next to him. So I think he's vital for this team, and I know a lot of people disagree, but I like Power. I think he's good at his job, and we do miss him, like you said, when he's out the team.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Peterborough then, because we haven't really spoke much about them other than talking a little bit about Dembele. Craig, do you feel like they'll be contenders after what you saw? I mean, or is it a case of more overhyping by the media? Because every year we go through this little spell of, with Peterborough, don't we? At the start of the season, everybody tips them to get promoted, and then they never seem to just be good enough. But they did end last season well, and they've signed a couple of good players, but I don't know. Did you see enough from them?
Based on that performance, not a lot. But I think in terms of, if you look at some of the results, a lot of the fancy teams are getting beat. There's been a few unsurprising results. But I mean, Peterborough are always there or thereabouts. I think to their credit, they did look slightly inventive in the first half. Dembele and Smodic played quite well together, I think. But one thing I thought was somewhat surprising, really, is when the pendulum swung, if you like, and we took the initiative. They just really lost a lot of composure. They lost a lot of the shape. And to be fair, there was a period for a good 15 minutes or so in the second half where you thought there's a goal coming from us here. And under that amount of pressure, they seem to struggle an awful lot. So whilst I think they'll certainly be up there, I would say that we're a better side than them based on that performance. I know obviously they had a few more chances than us, but you can have as many chances as you want. If you're not going to take them, then so be it. I know obviously they rallied late into the second half, but again, like I said, there was maybe the odd one chance where they came close. Grant Leadbitter cleared one off the line, I think, from Lewis Reed. But beyond that, I mean, there really weren't anything to write home about. And I think the fact that we've just come through that and we've just beat Oxford as well, there's a lot of teams in the league going to start to look at us and think all of a sudden, actually, Sunderland is starting to look the real deal again. So yeah, I think they're going to be there or thereabouts around the playoffs. I don't think they're good enough for automatic promotion, but of course it's early days. I mean, Christ, Lincoln have won all 3 games so far this season, so who knows? It's a long way to go just yet.
Let's actually move on to that, Lincoln, because they beat Charlton on Sunday. who of course we play at the weekend. Did you catch the highlights, Sam, or not? Did you see Charlton?
No, I didn't see the highlights. I've read reviews on them, and I know
Yeah.
they've got a few injuries, and they're not sure on their starting 11 and stuff, aren't they?
Yeah, basically, I mean, I did see the highlights from their game, and they could probably feel a little aggrieved to have went behind. They started really well, just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. Then there was a pretty dodgy decision which led to the first goal, which kind of capitulated from there, and then they conceded another. But Lincoln, like Craig said, have started really well, so it's a hard one to judge Charlton on. I spoke, and people will hear this later in the week, but I spoke to the guy who covers Charlton for the local newspaper, and he's pretty confident that Charlton will bring some players in this week, but it's a case of, are they going to be up to match fitness? Is everything just going to click in a big game against Sunderland? So we have to take advantage, I think, Craig, don't you, of the fact that they're just in limbo at the minute. They've got a new owner this week. They've signed a couple of players, but even the team that played Lincoln at the weekend, I mean, they had a kid on loan from Norwich playing centre half with a lad who's been signed to be backup, really. And then at full back, they've got a 17-year-old kid. Yeah, you have to think, if we're going to start the season as well as we can, we've got to beat Charlton regardless of how good some of their players are, right?
Oh, I would say so. And I think what hopefully should come into the minds of a lot of our players who were here for the days of the playoff final, that should still be in the back of their minds, thinking that we owe them one. It's a little bit of history repeating itself in terms of this time last year when we went down to Bolton and they'd had a bit of a shitty start, and then lo and behold, they bring in like 13 players in a week, and we struggle to get a result. So I'm hoping that, of course, we can avoid that sort of situation. But yeah, when I was going through their team, I was thinking, Christ Almighty, they're not certainly as good as they were maybe a year or two. I think losing Lyle Taylor, of course, is obviously going to be a big problem for them going forward. I think it's Connor Washington up front. So you're banking on people now to try and score the best part of 25, 30 goals. I expect it to be a very tight game. I think, of course, that they are going to come at us. I know that it's going to be fan-free, as always. But I think with them being the home sides, I think the impotence is on them now to try and obviously come out and lay their market down, because they've had a couple of really bad results. And I think if they were to get a result against us, then that's going to put them back in the picture early doors for who's maybe the favourites. But I think we've got to go down there. We've got to ensure that we keep it tight at the back and just got to take the game to them. We've got to look at their lineup. We've got to look at ours and think, player for player, at present, we're better than them. But it does have all the hallmarks of, like I said, that Bolton fixture last year, maybe with Johnny Williams coming on and tearing us a new one. But yeah, I think if we come through that with 3 points, then all of a sudden we are, going to be really reaffirming why people have made us favourites. But it's going to be a difficult game, yeah.
Yeah. Before the season started, Sam, you would have took 7 points from 9 going into this game. But I mean, when you're looking at it, 2 points a game generally guarantees promotion. Yeah, you've got to win this again, haven't we?
Yeah, we've got to, like Craig said there, we've got to be ruthless and take the opportunities of luck that might come our way. And if Charlton are still in limbo, we've got to blow them out the water and think we've got lucky to play them now. Let's take the chance. Like I was going to say, when Craig said about the Bolton game, I remember going down there, and on the way down, I mean, teams were smashing them 6-0 every week. And I was talking to a Bolton fan in the pub, and he was saying he would take a 3-0 defeat and then we'll scrape a draw because they've signed 40 players and half of them were ex-Sunderland. So we need to start taking chances when they're given to us, because we've been unlucky in the past. So I think we've got to go there to win. I think we will. I think it'll be a similar performance. I think we'll set up not to concede, maybe a boring first half like we've seen, I think, everyone this season, and then regroup at half time. And hopefully it's similar to Oxford, where it looks like Parkinson and the players sit down at half time and say, do you know what? These are nowhere near as good as we thought they were going to be. Let's just take the game to them and win. And I think we might do it again. So that'll be a great start to the season.
Yeah, they've actually, like I said earlier in the show, for all of they do have problems. Their midfield for League One is pretty good. I mean, the kid Doughty on the wing's the one that most Championship teams are trying to sign right now. Darren Prattley, very experienced player. Oztuma, somebody who was linked with Sunderland 2 years ago, but decent record at League One level. And then on the bench at the weekend, they had Johnny Williams, who we know all about, hasn't scored a goal yet since he went back to Charlton, but
Yet.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, I've said it now, haven't I?
Oh, you've done it now.
Jake Forster-Caskey, somebody who's been around forever, another decent player. Ben Watson, who I would say is too good for League One. He was a standout player last year for Forest, and he's only dropped down a league because he wanted to be further south, I think. So you've got to think, with a week's training in him, Watson will play. We have to maybe match them up in midfield, you'd think, Craig, or particularly with Maguire's injury. If he doesn't play, or he's maybe not fully fit, do we then look to play Power, Scowen and Leadbitter to try and match them up a bit?
Yeah, I'd personally go for the three of them to start the game. I know obviously that there's been the comments about where Scowen can play. Predominantly he's supposed to be a box-to-box midfielder, but if we can get maybe a couple of positions out of him in that game where he can drift out wide and chip in and obviously come in and help with a little bit of the legwork in midfield, then that's probably where this game's going to be won. And I kind of felt obviously that was the major point on Saturday as well, by kind of ensuring that Smodic and Dembele don't cause you any problems. Then essentially that kind of really won us the game in the end, because that allowed us to get forward. So I'm hoping for something similar. And again, it's just about exploiting this opportunity, because it's quite few and far between when we get to come up against teams in turmoil and really take advantage. And I think, like I said, if we can come away with 3 points from this one, then that's a really, really good start this season. So yeah, I'm confident of at least a draw. But realistically, I think we've got to look at these games now and we've got to start really kind of laying down that marker, stop pussyfooting around and just say, like, look, if we're wanting to get out of this league, this is somewhere where we're going to have to go and win a game. We started quite bright down there under Jack Ross a few years ago, then all of a sudden we just kind of went into our shells. And what you want to see is them start to brim with that bit of confidence like we did at Oxford. You go 1-0 up, you get the game, and then you start to grow into it a little bit more. So if we can maybe mirror that performance, then I'll be over the moon. But yeah, I think pack that midfield, make sure that whoever's up front is going to get that service, that we can at least just drop it on the foot if it's Will Grigg, or play it at the strengths of Graham or Charlie Wyke inevitably when he gets the nod. We've just got to make sure that everybody does the job. I don't think we can have a performance less than 7 out of 10 this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's a nice place to round things off, lads. So thank you very much for joining us today. Please remember, everyone, to subscribe if you enjoyed it. And even if you didn't, just do it, because, why not? And make sure that you join us back here for the Player Rating Show at the weekend, and of course the extra pod where you'll be able to hear me again. So if you hate my voice, then just don't bother this week, because it's all you're going to hear. Cheers, Sam. Thanks for joining us, mate. And Craig,
no pleasure.
All the best. Thanks everyone for listening, and of course, catch us down the road.